Hey guys, welcome back. I just want to talk about a story I came across in the book of Luke, and it's interesting because we hear this all the time, especially we've been hearing it a lot more recently through preachers like Shane Claiborne and Tony Campolo, and even the DC preacher Mark Batterson or even Francis Chan out in California, or wherever Francis has landed now. And the story is he's still on his way to Jerusalem. He's making his way. He's getting closer and closer to the Sabbath. It's getting closer and closer to Passover, and so he's making his way towards Jerusalem slowly. And one day, according to Luke, Jesus is walking, and there are large groups of people, as usual. Jesus had always had this huge following. There's large groups of people coming to him, and Jesus says something that I feel like we've kind of ignored when it comes to Jesus, and we constantly want to say that we don't ignore this, that we acknowledge this day in and day out in our walk. But I wonder how many of us actually think about this. And Jesus puts it this way: that anyone who comes to me but refuses to let go of father, mother, spouse, children, brothers, sisters, yes, even one's own self, cannot be my disciple. Anyone who won't shoulder his own cross and follow behind me can't be my disciple. This is in Luke chapter 14, starting in verse 25. I'm going to try and talk all the way down to 34. But here's this interesting thing: is Jesus said, if anyone comes to me and refuses to let go of family, even their own lives, they cannot be my disciple. They cannot follow me. It's along the same lines when Jesus was speaking with a bunch of people on the way, and he's talking to these people, and he says very simply, once you start following the kingdom, you can't turn around and look back. It's all or nothing. You're in it for the long haul, or you're not in it at all. There is no middle ground when it comes to what Jesus talks about, what he says. I mean, basically, he gives two very, very important images. One is about someone who, and like, if you plan on building the house, you need to make sure you have enough money to build it. Otherwise, you're only going to get so far and be like, oh, I'm out of money. Here's my half-finished house, everyone. And everyone's going to be laughing at you. Well, same thing with a king. I talked about a king who's going out to battle, but the king only has 10,000 troops, and his opponent, this other king, his enemy, has 20,000 troops. He's got to figure, do I have what it takes with my 10,000 to be his 20,000, or should I go and try and make peace with this guy? And Jesus says, simply put, it's the first Luke 14:33, Jesus says, simply put, if you're not willing to take what is dearest to you, whether your plans or people, and kiss it goodbye, you cannot be my disciple. Jesus says you have to be willing to give up everything for the sake of the kingdom. Everything. You look at the apostles, including the apostle Paul later on, and they all literally left everything. James, John, Peter, Judas Iscariot, although Judas Iscariot didn't really quite give up everything until eventually he gave up his own life. You look at Simon the Zealot, you look at Matthew the tax collector, they all gave up their professions, they gave up their friends, they gave up their families to follow Jesus. And here's Jesus saying that unless you're willing to do that, unless you're willing and able to take everything that is dearest to you, whether it's your life dreams, whether it's your job, whether it's your family, whether it's your home, if you're not willing to take it and kiss it goodbye, if you're not willing to give it up for the sake of Jesus, you cannot be a disciple of Christ. So think about that. Are you willing to count the cost? Are you willing to give up everything, to spend your whole life following Jesus? Jesus says if you're not, then you're not worthy. If you're not willing to crucify yourself, if you're not willing to carry your cross and follow me, then you're not worthy. So think about that. Are you worthy? And are you willing? I'm not giving you a new teaching. I'm not telling you anything you've never heard before. I'm not telling you something that's never been heard before by anyone, never been taught before. I'm giving it right out of the scriptures. Right out of the mouth of the Son of God himself, who said if you're not willing to give up everything, if it has to come down to that, and if you're not willing to, you can't be my disciple. You can't follow me. Following Jesus is peaceful, but it's the hardest thing you're ever going to do in your life. But trust me, it's worth it in the long haul. Be blessed, my friends. Go out today. Think about, is it worth it to follow Jesus? Am I willing to give up everything for the sake of God's kingdom? So go out, my friends. Be blessed. We'll talk soon.